The Six-Day War, fought between June 5th and June 10th, 1967, was a pivotal moment in the long-standing conflict between Israel and its Arab neighbors. The events leading up to this decisive military confrontation were rooted in decades of unresolved tensions and hostilities that had simmered since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. In the years following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, relations between Israel and its surrounding Arab nations had never fully normalized. Issues such as the Palestinian refugee crisis and the Suez Crisis of 1956 had created an atmosphere of deep antagonism and mistrust throughout the Arab world towards the Jewish state. By the mid-1960s, these tensions had reached a boiling point. Attacks conducted by Palestinian guerrilla groups based in Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan against Israeli targets had increased, leading to costly Israeli reprisals. In November 1966, an Israeli strike on the Jordanian village of Al-Samūʿ left 18 dead and 54 wounded, further exacerbating the situation. Adding to the volatility, in April 1967, the Israeli Air Force shot down 6 Syrian MiG fighter jets during an air battle, heightening the sense of vulnerability and aggression among Israel's Arab neighbors. Against this backdrop of escalating violence, Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser moved to demonstrate his support for Syria and assert his leadership in the Arab world. On May 14, 1967, Nasser mobilized Egyptian forces in the Sinai Peninsula, bordering Israel. 5 days later, he formally requested the removal of the United Nations Emergency Force, UNEF, stationed there, effectively ending its peacekeeping mission. Nasser's actions did not stop there. On May 22nd, he closed the Straits of Tiran, a vital maritime choke point, to Israeli shipping, instituting an effective blockade of the port city of Eilat in southern Israel. This move was seen by Israel as a casus belli, or justification for war. Tensions reached a fever pitch on May 30th, when King Hussein of Jordan arrived in Cairo to sign a mutual defense pact with Egypt, placing Jordanian forces under Egyptian command. Shortly thereafter, Iraq also joined the alliance, further solidifying the Arab coalition against Israel. Faced with the apparent mobilization of its Arab neighbors, Israel decided to act preemptively. In the early hours of June 5, 1967, the Israeli Air Force launched a sudden and devastating assault, destroying more than 90% of Egypt's air force on the ground. This air superiority proved to be a decisive advantage in the ensuing conflict. With the Egyptian Air Force neutralized, the Israelis launched a ground offensive into the Sinai Peninsula, quickly overwhelming the Egyptian forces. Within 3 days, the Israelis had captured the Gaza Strip and the entire Sinai up to the east bank of the Suez Canal. The war also expanded to other fronts. On June 5th, Jordanian forces began shelling West Jerusalem, prompting an Israeli counterattack. Over the next 2 days, Israeli forces drove the Jordanians out of East Jerusalem and most of the West Bank. In the north, the Israelis also launched an assault on the Golan Heights, a strategic high ground overlooking northern Israel, capturing it from Syrian forces after a day of heavy fighting. By June 10th, a ceasefire was in place, and the Six-Day War had come to an end. The Arab countries had suffered devastating losses, with Egypt, Jordan, and Syria collectively losing over 20,000 troops, compared to just 700 for Israel. The Arab armies also suffered crippling losses of weaponry and equipment. The lopsided defeat was a profound blow to Arab morale and prestige, with Egyptian President Nasser initially announcing his resignation before being persuaded to remain in power by mass demonstrations. In Israel, the victory was celebrated as a triumph, solidifying the country's status as the preeminent military power in the region. However, the aftermath of the Six-Day War also marked the start of a new phase in the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. The capture of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Golan Heights brought more than 1 million Palestinians under Israeli occupation, setting the stage for ongoing tensions and the push for a lasting peace settlement. The Six-Day War, with its swift and decisive Israeli victory, would have far-reaching consequences that continue to shape the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East to this day. The events leading up to the conflict, rooted in decades of unresolved tensions and hostilities, had finally boiled over into a momentous clash that would redefine the balance of power in the region.